that will work, or rather that it's for all Africans. We are talking about the growing of black industrialists. How many industrialists do we have out there? I mean, black industrialists. How many do we have in Africa?
Well, if you checked the show yesterday and you watched what LinkedIn is about, you will definitely get most of them right there.
True that, true that. But now to tell us more about this, up next on Going Business, Zweli is here.
A very good morning to you all. My name is Warrior, also known as Chiamaka across Africa. We do hope that you're having a fabulous morning, and you tuned into Good Morning Africa, the biggest and brightest breakfast show on the continent. Today we're talking all things business, specifically looking at growing black industrialists across the continent. And to help us this topic, we have our guest. His name is Zweli Sapula, and he's in studio today, and he is head of Strategic Projects Fund from the NEF, and he's in studio with us this morning. Hello.
Hello.
How are you doing?
Well, thanks.
Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Can you please just give us an overview of more or less how, it's been nearly 20 years of democracy in South Africa, and the economy, a lot of people have different opinions about how it's looking in terms of the black population. If you can just give us an overview of what's the standing currently.
If you look at South Africa as a whole, and you look at how black people have actually managed to access the mainstream economy, what you're finding is that a lot of black people still don't have access to the mainstream economy. If you look at the JSE, for example, which has trillions of rands in terms of value, you find that only 3% of that actually sits, within the black population, or rather the 90% of the population of South Africa. And we believe, obviously, that number is very, and we believe that should be tipped in the right direction.
Yeah, I'm coming from the NEF. What measures have you put in place to help or to make sure that you are getting a huge number of black South Africans or black Africans to start making their mark in terms of the economy?
There's two ways. So as the NEF is structured, we essentially were created to facilitate the participation of black people in the mainstream economy.
Okay.
We do this in two ways. One is by providing funding, and the other way is by providing non-financial assistance to businesses, particularly small SMMEs who have never had an experience of running their own businesses. What we also do is, which we believe in, is building or creating black industrialists. And the way that we do that is by identifying projects at a very early stage, which we will then fund and develop until those projects can be considered to be bankable. What you find is that in the market there's a big gap in terms of finding seed capital funding, particularly for them to be able to actually invest in early stage projects, because there's a lot of risk and the chances of returns are very slim until you've de-risked the project. So we step in to assist them so they can focus on developing the projects and not have to worry about the financial supports that they would actually need for those projects.
So we've termed our topic for today growing black industrialists. What does that exactly mean if we were to break it down?
It's essentially growing people who will actually look at building the industrial capacity. So it's looking at people who can be entrepreneurs, but not on a small scale, like opening a small shop down the road, but looking at a bigger industrial capacity of the country. So, for example, you get a guy who would say that they're interested in building a soap manufacturing facility, which will probably employ roughly 100 to 200 people. And that's essentially what we look for, people who have great vision and big dreams of building huge sustainable companies.
And infrastructure, getting the small businesses to move up. There's a mindset of, if it's small, it's yours and you're maintaining it, but the expanding of businesses and companies, how do you program or set them up, these small businesses, to actually start entering into the bigger mainstream stuff? Is there sort of a program that you run with them?
It's not a program per se, but what we do have is a mentorship program, call it that. but it's essentially a process where we take entrepreneurs and we partner them with the right mentor who actually then helps them in developing their business. Particularly what you find as a problem is that most people might be, for example, an engineer who's never run a business, but he's got the great idea, but now he started let's say a rock drilling company.
Yeah.
But he doesn't know how to manage his cash flows, or he doesn't know how to market his business properly. So what we do is that we would partner then the entrepreneur with someone who's able to help them to make sure that they're able to achieve those things. And it also helps in two ways. One, it helps us to actually as black industrialists, one, and secondly, it also sort of like skills them up.
Yeah.
Because the biggest problem is that you get people who don't have the necessary skills to run businesses, but they might have the skills to run technical things.
So you want to create a balance between the two.
Yeah.
So one might say that growing black industrials is more on the IDC's territory. What would your response be to that?
There's a bit of both. I mean, we all have a certain place that we can play. So if you look at what IDC does, they generally do a lot of huge, large transactions. Where we look at the smaller ones, where you would probably need at most about 2 million to maybe 10 million. As a startup, particularly when you're still doing your scoping studies. And also the way that we interact with IDC is that they normally get involved once the project has been de-risked to a certain level, and then they would then take it further. To give an example, we've co-funded a project with IDC, which is called the RMI project, which is Rare Metals Industries, where we got involved at the beginning when it was still at level, and then we built it up, and then IDC got involved once it was at a pre-feasibility stage, which then allowed the project to actually grow. If you look at the project now, we get into the bankable feasibility stage, and that will be a $2.1 billion US size project, which will probably create about 7,000 jobs.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Big ups to you for that awesome collaboration, and obviously playing a big role not only just to families but the South African economy as a whole. Now coming to who can apply, who can walk into your offices and meet with you guys and start to begin some sort of partnership. Who's open to come to the NEF to apply, or maybe to get the mentorship program that you're speaking about, or funds? How does that really work?
It purely depends on the type of project or the company that you're funding. So if you take, for example, a company that's existing, that is black owned, assuming it's roughly 1% black owned, they could walk into the NEF and get funding for their expansion of their business, or to grow their business even further, or have access to the mentorship that we provide. Over and above that, though, what we also do is that we also provide acquisition financing. So if you're a black business and you want to acquire a stake in an existing business, we would also be able to offer that kind of funding. What we also do in the strategic project fund space, we don't necessarily look for a typical BE businesses. What we look at is anyone who has a great idea which fits into the industrial policy action plan. Then we would definitely look at that, particularly if it has a social development angle to it.
All right. So, how important is people who are coming to you to apply, to be part of the mentorship program, for them to know the requirements? Because I think a lot of people go to funders and they don't meet the funders' requirements. How important is to find that synergy between the two?
It's quite important, because it essentially makes people think. It actually tells you how long it would take to get their project to a certain stage. So what you find a lot of times is that people will come and say they want funding, but they don't have the necessary information or so on, and then it takes long to actually get to a funding stage. So it takes long to actually help them get to where they want to get. So it's very important for people to actually start understanding the requirements up front, because then that reduces the length of time that your application sits with the NEF, and then you won't then complain that the NEF takes long for you to get funding and so on. A lot of the times it's not because we are inefficient, it's mainly because we don't have the necessary information from the entrepreneurs for us to be able to make a decision on their projects.
And I think that's maybe one of the common mistakes. I'm going to ask you, what are other common mistakes that people make when coming to approach the NEF? Maybe documents are not all in place, or the necessary information, like you're saying. What are some of the other mistakes that they make that prolongs or delays the process, or even stops them from getting the necessary help that they could have got?
Sometimes it's people walking away. People would come to the NEF with a project or a business that they want to start, or an existing business that they're running, and they're seeking funding. And because we would interrogate whatever they're doing, they assume that we are saying that the project is not worth funding or not. But a lot of times we just need more information for us to be able to make a decision. So what you find a lot of times is that as soon as you start asking questions, people start feeling like you're digging into something you shouldn't be digging into, and they walk away. And a lot of times we only do that for two reasons. One, to help identify exactly what type of mentorship we should put into the business, firstly, and secondly, to also assist in putting in the right information for us to be able to make the necessary decision. One of the key things is someone might walk into our doors and say they need 2 million rands for their business, but then after we've interrogated and we've looked at the business model and that, we realize actually they need a whole lot more. And we're able then to say, look, actually your business needs this much, let's structure something that actually suits your business. That there's one solution that fits everyone. We try and tailor make all our solutions to meet every single business for its purpose.
Yes. All right, and then just to close off, if anybody wants to, contact you or maybe the NEF and want to get more information or know how they can go about approaching you, how can we get a hold of you?
We have a website, and it's www.nefcorp.co.za, and we also have a call center line, which is 011-305-8000.
All right, as easy as that.
As easy as that.
Thank you so much for coming and joining us and just, expanding our knowledge in terms of that there is actually room for more black people in the industry, that they could be doing bigger and better things in terms of business and companies and running their own thing within their own continent and their own countries. But thank you once again for joining us in studio this morning. That's unfortunately all the time we have for this morning, but you heard the contact details. If you have any more queries, make sure that you do visit the site and drop a call, drop an email, and make sure that you get all the information that you need. However, we need to head on out of here. My name is Rory, also known as Chiamaka. I'll see you again next time.
That was Zweli Ongoing Business talking to us about the growing of black industrialists. Very important subject, and thank you so much to Zweli for coming through to our studios. Now, if you have more questions with regards to that topic or any other topic right here on GMA, feel free to send them to gma@planetimage.co.za. Remember that this is for you. Without you, we wouldn't be here. So we want to know what you would love to see and learn more right here on Good Morning Africa. Now, what have we got for tomorrow?
Yes, tomorrow.